In the collective imagination, the word witch hunt instantly conjures images of Salem, black hats, midnight trials, and the fevered paranoia of Massachusetts in 1692. But what if I told you Virginia had its very own witch panic, complete with accusations, ill-fated midwives, and even a man sentenced to a less than magical 13 lashes? Yes, that's right. While Salem is infamous for its bonfires of hysteria, the Old Dominion was quietly staging its own dark comedy of errors, with all the drama, heartbreak, and grim farce that history can muster. Let's begin our story with Virginia's most celebrated witch, Grace Sherwood, forever remembered as the Witch of Pungo. Now, Grace was a woman ahead of her time, which is to say, she was a healer, a midwife, and, gasp, someone who didn't quite fit into the demure mold her neighbors preferred. If you ever wanted proof that being a little different can make you a target, Grace's tale is all the evidence you'll need. For years, Grace's neighbors accused her of the unthinkable, bewitching crops, cursing livestock, and generally making a nuisance of herself with her herbal remedies and independent spirit. Her real crime, of course, was being competent, outspoken, and perhaps a little too skilled with plants and potions. In a society nervous about change, that was more than enough. But the accusations didn't stop at whispers over garden fences. In 1706, Grace faced the notorious ducking trial, a method so scientifically rigorous you'd think it was cooked up by a committee of madmen and village gossips. The premise was simple: tie up the accused, toss her into the Lynnhaven River, and see if she floats. If she sinks, she's innocent and presumably dead. If she floats, she's a witch and, well, still in trouble. Grace, as it happened, floated. Rather than marvel at her buoyancy or consider her for the Olympic swim team, the court declared this proof of her guilt. She was imprisoned for several years, but unlike the tragic victims in Salem, she was never executed. Grace was eventually released, returning home to her farm, where she lived out her days in relative peace until her death around 1740. 3 centuries later, in 2006, Virginia's Governor Tim Kaine issued a formal pardon for Grace Sherwood, acknowledging the injustice she suffered. Call it justice delayed, but it's a reminder that history, for all its cruelty, sometimes circles back to right a few wrongs, preferably when there's no risk of getting wet. But Grace wasn't the only soul caught in Virginia's web of superstition. Let's talk about Joan Wright, a midwife accused of witchcraft in 1626, decades before Salem ever made headlines. Joan's alleged crimes? She was said to have predicted deaths and, horror of horrors, was left-handed. If you're wondering how ambidextrous midwife became synonymous with servant of the devil, you're not alone. The logic is as twisted as a hangman's knot. Joan's accusers claim she caused the death of a newborn and foretold other misfortunes, skills that today might earn her a spot on a daytime talk show rather than a court docket. Yet despite the flurry of suspicion, she was acquitted. Perhaps the judges realized that if predicting death made one a witch, half the physicians and all the pessimists in Virginia would be in peril. And then there's William Harding, the rare male victim of Virginia's witch trials. In 1655, Harding was convicted of witchcraft and sentenced to the rather undignified punishment of 13 lashes and banishment from the county. One can only imagine the conversations that followed. What happened to Bill? Oh, you know, the usual: witchcraft, a flogging, sent packing. If nothing else, Harding's case proves that fear and suspicion are equal opportunity afflictions, though the punishments meted out to men were, as ever, a little less final. These stories are more than footnotes. They are testaments to the dangers of unchecked authority, mass hysteria, and the peril of being other in a world allergic to difference. They remind us that the witch hunts were less about magic and more about social control, about silencing the inconvenient, the outspoken, and the misunderstood. Which brings us to today, and to the importance of remembrance. Why do we mark these grim anniversaries? And why is something like the September 21st, 2025 Witch Walk so vital? Because memory is a powerful antidote to ignorance. When we walk in honor of Grace Sherwood and all those accused and punished for imaginary crimes, we don't just pay tribute to the past, we make a statement about the present and the future. The Witch Walk isn't just a quirky parade or an exercise in historical cosplay. It is an act of resistance, a living assertion of our First Amendment rights, to speak freely, to assemble, to challenge orthodoxy, and to protect those who dare to be different. When we lace up our shoes and step onto the streets, we walk for everyone who has ever been silenced, shamed, or persecuted for standing out. We walk because the freedom to dissent, to believe, to heal, and to question is not guaranteed unless we defend it, every day, in big ways and small. And we walk with a sense of humor because laughter is sometimes the only weapon against absurdity. The image of a woman floating in a river as proof of her alliance with the devil is so laughable it borders on tragicomic. Yet these were real lives, real suffering, and real courage. If we can't remember with a bit of wit and a lot of heart, we risk forgetting altogether. So let us honor Grace, Joan, William, and all the unnamed souls lost to superstition and fear. Let us remember their stories not as relics but as warnings. Let us walk not just for them, but for ourselves, for the right to speak, to question, and to live without fear of the mob's judgment. Persecution extended far beyond colonial Virginia's witch trials, touching countless lives across cultures and generations. Native American spiritual practitioners were branded as witches and suffered devastating losses, not only from prejudice but also from deadly epidemics spread through infected blankets and disease. Enslaved Africans, some sold by rival tribes, endured profound injustice and separation from their traditions. Latino communities concealed their beliefs behind Catholic saints to survive, while Chinese railroad workers practiced their faith in secret, hidden from sight and sheltered beneath city streets. These stories reveal a broader tapestry of resilience and sorrow, reminding us that intolerance knows no boundaries and that the fight for dignity and freedom spans continents and centuries. Because history isn't just in the past, it's in every step we take toward a freer, fairer, and more compassionate world. Step forward with us, not just for your own voice, but for every silenced story. For those whose names were lost to history, for the wounds that never healed, for traditions buried in shame, and for spirits masked by fear. Each step is a promise to remember, to resist, to reclaim what was stolen. Together we honor their courage and forge a path toward justice. We walk for them, for ourselves, for tomorrow. Will you walk with us? September 21st, 2025 at 3:33 p.m., Abner Clay Park in Richmond, Virginia, hosted by 3 of Cups Community Collective.